So Microsoft has hit an all-time low recently and it just had dipped below 500. And you're probably wondering, where is all this coming from? Why are all these stocks losing so much value? So I'm talking about Amazon, I'm talking about Meta, about Microsoft, about Alphabet, aka Google as well. Why are they all losing so much value in such a short time? And it all has to do with the earnings season this season. It all has to do with Microsoft really indicating that, hey, we might have been spending a lot on these data centers and we cannot really guarantee you when the returns will come from all our spending, all this increase in capex on AI, on data centers, on language models, on OpenAI as well. You know, Sam Altman has come out as well defending OpenAI, saying we need more money and the government really needs to guarantee that they will spend heavily on AI or we will lose the race against China. So I'm talking about US versus China. So you're probably wondering, should you even invest in Microsoft? Is Microsoft still going to be number one in the whole AI race? And you're probably wondering, should you invest and when should you invest? And you know, Microsoft recently hit the target below $500 in stock price, and this is a very bad thing. And the thing is, Microsoft is not really performing that bad. So if you look at for Microsoft, what's really important for Microsoft is if you look at the Azure, if you look at the cloud, if you look at the margin that they make on cloud, it's actually going up. And this is a big metric for a lot of analysts, for a lot of investors. They always look at how is Microsoft performing on cloud. And this is how they're competing with Amazon, how they're competing with Google, how they're competing with Gemini. It all has to do with that cloud margin that needs to go up and it needs to stay high for Microsoft to be number one on the chart. So you're probably wondering, will Microsoft be on the top again? Because Microsoft has been part of two AI bubbles. You know, you had the tech bubble that's going on right now, but you also had another tech bubble, which was the internet bubble in the 2000s, and Microsoft was also part of that, and it recovered quite nicely. You know, a lot of companies, they did not make it. You know, Microsoft was lucky enough to find their niche again, to find their product again, to really expand in the whole computer, in the whole internet era as well. So you're probably wondering, will Microsoft beat the odds again and will it be on top again? And how should you trade? So I'm a quant investor. I always use quantitative methods to invest. So that means I usually use derivatives, I use options, I use futures, and I use structured products as well. So you're probably wondering, how can you use these techniques to make the same money that the hedge funds are making by betting on Microsoft, and how can you do that? So if you expect Microsoft to stay flat at 500, because 500 is a psychological barrier for a lot of investors. So if you expect Microsoft to stay flat at 500 for the next couple of weeks, then a calendar spread or a diagonal spread is the way to approach this. So these spreads are used you can create these spreads by using two call options or two put options. I will talk about more of call options. So I will talk about call options and I will say you can use these diagonal spreads to bet that Microsoft will stay relatively flat the next coming weeks. So it will stay at that 500 for like coming November, maybe early December as well. And then people will start getting into the markets again. They're now on the sidelines. They're just hesitant. They don't know when to buy the dip. They don't know how to get in. So what I would do, and this is not investment advice, if I expect Microsoft to stay flat for the next couple of weeks, I will use a calendar spread or a diagonal spread. And these spreads, they make the most profit. They can even make like 2 or 3 times returns. So that's 200 to 300% if you really time your spread correctly. So that means if the short call option is expiring out of the money and the long call option still has a lot of theta value, that means time value left. This is how you really position yourself in a flat market. And I believe we're heading towards a flat market where people are hesitant. There's a lot of FOMO. There are a lot of people on the sidelines. They don't know how to get in. So stocks will hit that low and they will stay there for a couple of days until some good news really comes and picks up the market. And this can happen fast as well. So don't position your spread too far out in the future. You know, use weeklies, use monthlies, but do not really go into like 1 year saying that Microsoft will stay flat for like a whole year. That is not the case. So use these diagonal spreads, use calendar spreads to bet on Microsoft staying flat and then increasing over time again. And this will happen when, for example, when the government shutdown ends. You know, when the US government shutdown ends and the Democrats and the Republicans reach a deal and they open the government again and people will start having money again, of course, all these tax people, everything will be paid and all these people who work for the government will be paid and everything will go on as used to be before the shutdown. And this is a very big indication of the markets going forward again. Of course, in December, do not forget, we have the Federal Reserve. They might be cutting rates. If they cut rates again, this is good for people that use leverage, that use debt to invest. So the borrowing rate will go down a bit. And this is good news for investors as well and for the equity markets as well. So this is my take on how you should play Microsoft for the short term, using options, use diagonal spreads, use calendar spreads, and really see how long the stock will stay flat and when it will pick up again, and then you use different positions again.